Welcome to season 2 of Imitates Life. I'm your host, Tripp Fusco. I love all things creative. I want people to be more creative in their lives. And in season 1, did an exploration of flow state and different artists and how they engage with flow state, how to get better at getting into flow state, how to maintain flow state. We talked about the importance of creativity and art. But how, is always a question. Last season we talked about why. This season we're talking about how. I just want it to be a conversation, and there's just a here over the shoulder.
Accept that there's people that are going to be better than you at that specific thing. So I know there's going to be someone that's better at editing.
And you could sit around and say, well, I haven't started on the main script because I'm waiting for it to be inspired, right? When you show up and you sit down and you go to your spot, the inspiration does come.
If I don't put my skin in the game, shed a bit of blood, how could I expect for the return I'm hoping for to be as severe as the sacrifice?
A lot of people will be like, I could never do, I have no idea how to do, and I didn't either, for the most part. It's just sitting down and taking the time to learn it once, and then when you do, it's like, oh my gosh.
How do we use our skills to better ourselves and the world around us? Because in one of the last episodes of season 1, I kind of touched on a topic where I didn't know what my purpose was. And I currently don't know what my purpose is. And to achieve something, you have to know why you're doing it, what you're doing, and how you're going to do it, right? There's all these answers you kind of need to figure out, maybe. I personally have kind of danced around this idea for years and kind of just decided that I want to figure it out. So season 2 is about figuring it out. Season 1's why, season 2 is how. So how do I think I'm going to figure this out? Well, I went to school for film, decided I wanted to do it because a friend was doing it, because I grew up around it, because I've always had an affinity for film and a creative eye. And I've heard a lot of different things. I'm a big fan of self-help. I got a lot of books behind me, some of which I've read. And I kind of want to put these ideas, these philosophies, these theories together and kind of create a framework to build toward my purpose and find it. Again, I don't know what it is, but I have some inklings, right? I said I was circling it in a previous episode, and that is true. So this season is all about figuring it out. And to figure it out, you got to mess around, right? Like you have to get into it. You have to try different things. You have to find what you're good at, what you want to be doing, what's important to you. I did some rudimentary work looking into some stuff and kind of didn't come out with a lot of concrete answers. I feel like obviously this is everyone else's journey, right? I think it's funny because advice is perfectly curated for the person who's giving it, not the person who's receiving it. The person who's giving you the advice needed to hear that message. You need to understand a version of that message, right? That's the difference. The best advice is the one you learn from yourself, like it's what you take from the world, not what the world necessarily gives you. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's people tell you, well, okay, so it's one of the 4 agreements. It's what people say says more about them than it does about you, right? Like what people say about you. So when people compliment you, it says more about them than it does about you because they wish they had heard that. It's important to them, but it may not be important to you. Everyone's perspective is skewed. I once said to a friend, we were at a bar, and I was just like, man, a lot of cute girls. I wish I had the confidence. I wish I was confident. I wish I could go talk to these women. And he looked at me and he goes, if you're not confident, then what the hell am I? If what you have is not confidence, I'll take it. Like, give it to me. And I was like, damn, okay. everyone is to their experience level, is to their level of perspective. So, I want to help as many people as possible, but I'm a firm believer in leading by example. When I was a kid, I was very involved in a non-denominational church. In that church, we talked about deeds, actions, loving people. I always loved a lot of those principles, those values, and a lot of them are still deeply ingrained in me. But what I want this to be is an agnostic look at these kind of principles, these ideas, these things that I kind of find along the way that can help to bring about maybe my purpose. There was a time in my life I wanted to be a pastor. And again, going to the agnostic nature of good advice, I think pigeonholing myself was going to just limit the amount I could do. And that may not be a popular opinion for some, but I do think that too many people throw out the baby with the bathwater. And sometimes you have to talk to people on their level in order for them to hear you. And that's, again, going back to that, the advice people give says more about them than it says about you. And as I'm giving advice and telling people, that's why I always wait until someone's asked me for advice enough to actually give it. I think most people don't want to hear what you have to say. They just want to hear that they're right in their thinking. So I will kind of hear people out before I, speak up. What does this season look like? I don't know yet. I'm finding out. It's going to be loosely based on the hero's journey. For those of you who don't know, the hero's journey is the basis of every, Marvel movie, the Bible. It's the basis of the Matrix. It's the basis of most stories that we are told in Western and even Eastern cultures. Joseph Campbell figured out that all myths across the world have the same standard hero's journey template that they are told by. It's in like 3-ish, 4-ish parts. Number 1, right? There are 3 acts, right? Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Act 1 is where you are now. Act 2 is how you get there. Act 3 is you come back. It's the resolution. So the reason I say 3-ish, 4-ish parts is there's 3 acts, but there's 4 parts. Part 1 is you. Who is the hero? Part 2 is where they are going. They go somewhere. And then part 3 is where it's taken them. Part 4 is what they bring back with them, is a way I kind of came up with describing that. And here's a more in-depth process of going through it, right? So Lord of the Rings is one that's used a lot, so maybe I don't use that. But I'll use it anyway. So they're in the Shire. The Shire is you. The Shire is Act 1. He gets the ring. He has to take it to Mordor. He had, at that point, an urge to go out and see the world, right? Go beyond the Shire. And then he gets this thing and he says no, then has to go out of the Shire because the bad people showed up in the Shire. So he goes on his journey. Along that journey, there's trials, there's tribulations, there's high points, there's low points, there's the deepest, darkest, innermost cave, which is in where it takes you, right? So the trials, tribulations, false positive, false negative, those are all going to be in the beginning of Act 2. Those are all where you're going. And then where it takes you is kind of midpoint into innermost cave, into return. And then the last part, what you bring back with you, is when they return from Mordor, having successfully destroyed the ring, and they come back to tell the tale, and they end up going their separate ways, and Samwise, tells the story of Frodo, or Frodo tells the story, whatever the case is. I'm blanking on the end, but theoretically, that's the story, right? It's based off the Iliad and the Odyssey, Odysseus' journey to make it back home and prove who he is and what he's learned along the way. So I want to base my search for meaning, for purpose, on this journey, this hero's journey. Reason being, is most stories are told this way. Also, I think it's interesting, we use a lot of the same cliches, turns of phrase, similes, analogies, metaphors, allusions. A lot of people like to say you are the author of your own life. the author of your destiny. That is what this kind of jumping off point may have been. Looking at yourself in the sense that you are the hero of your own story. I just finished a book talking about self-talk and how positive self-talk can really get you to do anything, and how it helps keep you out of that I can't, gets you into that I can. I also had heard this TED Talk once where someone was talking about the gamification of life. They, really quick synopsis of what I took away from the story. Again, I'm not the best narrator, but I am a narrator. This person was having a hard time in school, but not a hard time playing Mario. And he kind of tied the two together when he realized that school isn't always built for progression. It is a progression plan, but it's get to this test, answer as many as possible, and then just go on to the next test. Whereas something like Mario, where you get to like level 160, then you get to 161, and then you hit this hurdle, this obstacle, and then you have to go all the way back then, and you do it again, and then you keep trying it until you overcome it. And they thought of this really cool plan, and so this was on TED Radio Hour, which pairs multiple TED Talks together. One of the ones they tied to that was the gamification of life. And the gamification for life is a fun, interesting way to do some of the John Doerr, James Clear aspects of personal growth goals and achievement. John Doerr wrote a book called Measure What Matters, and he talks about OKRs, which are objective key results. And that is a process of figuring out what your objective is, and then what the key results of that are, and then how do you measure it, right? So once you can measure it, you can figure out how to get there. Once you have your objective, you will find out what your key results are. Those are the metrics those are kind of your goals, the metrics to measure success of that key result. If I want to be a better salesperson, that's the objective. The key result is increase my deal size or increase my volume. Okay, then what do I need to do in order to increase my sale size or my sale volume? That's the system which they break down. James Clear talks about atomic habits. What's the smallest version, the most frictionless version of what you want to do, and building systems that push you forward. How to lose 100 and something pounds is an example in his book. This person started by going to the gym for 5 minutes a day. Just 5 minutes. They just had to go, be there for 5 minutes, and leave. After some time, you're already there. You're not going to want to leave without doing something. You see people doing activity, you start doing activity. That is the most minimal version to get yourself in the gym. Once you're there, the laziness takes over, and instead of working against you, it's working for you. So my idea was to start pairing all of this that I've been learning over the years, put them together, and create a progression plan for myself. But again, I don't know what that is. So right now my objective is to find my purpose. Right? What is my purpose? The key results are what I'm working on now. There is a Japanese principle called Ikigai that I've heard a lot, so I'm assuming a lot of you have heard about it. There are 4 parts. The first is what you uniquely have to offer, what you're good at. The second is what is important to you. The third is what does the world need? And the fourth is getting paid. Now, I don't need to worry about that last one just yet. We can figure that out later. So in the Venn diagram, what I'm looking for is that little point right in the center that is something I'm good at, something I find important, and something the world needs. Those are going to be my key results. Finding what I'm good at, what I want, what I find important, what the world needs, and if I can at the end, put it together and get paid for it. Because that's the secret sauce. That's the sweet sauce of life. Now, what does this look like? So there's like several different ways of looking into the hero's journey. Some people say it's 12 beats, some say it's 10, some say it's 24. There are a lot of different things. The essence of it is you start somewhere, where I am now. You have a goal. The next thing is go. What gets you moving, right? You have the call to action, which for me, I've been looking for personal growth. Like I said, I've been reading personal growth books for years. I've listened to personal growth podcasts, books. Literally, I follow personal growth a lot. So I want to personally grow myself. And that I found Ikigai and the idea of finding your purpose and fulfilling that purpose and having meaning in your life through that purpose. Up till now, my refusal of the call has been, it's a lot of work. I don't want to do it. What if I do it and then what? What if I do it and it goes well? What if I do it and it goes horribly? What if I do it and nothing happens? We don't have those answers. After trying to go about it my mom's way, my dad's way, my friend's way, the Tim Ferriss way, the Ryan Holiday way, the yada, 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 found out that I need to find my way. That goes back to the best advice is going to come from inside the house. Right? People are going to tell you what they need to hear. I'm not saying don't listen to them. You should always listen. Always listen to what people have to tell you. A lot of people will say I'm wise for my age. A big part of that comes from listening, hearing what people have to say, deciphering it, translating it into what I need, and then going forward. So as I go out into my Act 2 this season of Imitates Life, I'm going to be trying new things. I'm going to be failing. I'm going to hate myself. Not because I want to, but because I'm an insecure person like everyone else. I'm going to be in some dark places. I'm going to be in some happy places. There will be a point where I think I'm through the woods and I'm not. And by the end of it, we'll be back here talking. You can be listening. You don't have to listen, and we'll see what I learned from it. One of the things I think is most important is the practice. Ryan Holiday talks about it a lot in his podcast, The Daily Stoic. Great author, big fan of his. He says, philosophy is in the practice. That is a paraphrase, but it's not meant to be talked. It's meant to be practiced. You're supposed to go out. You're supposed to test yourself. It's very easy to say, the trolley problem is simple. I would turn that lever. One death is easier than 5 deaths on the whole of humanity, right? And I hope no one has to practice that problem. But we will face variations of it. Either this department at work has to lose $80 million, I don't know what you're doing, or I have to lay off 5 people. That's the trolley problem in essence. So when you get into practice, that's what this is about. And I'm being realistic, pragmatic about the fact that I know it's going to suck. I know it's going to be hard to show up and do this. I wanted to do something like 75 hard. That's difficult, obviously, in the name. That's a very impressive feat, and I think it's something I'm going to be doing at some point this year. But I think a more important thing for me right now is coming up with a creative process, a process to get people to be more creative. Because I personally live a life where I work all day and I work from home and I live at home, so I'm home all by myself all the time. And that becomes a real drain. It makes it hard to want to do things on certain days, and it makes it really easy to just go on Instagram and mindlessly scroll, right? It makes it really easy to just watch TV ad nauseum. But as AI goes up, it will never be as bad as it is today ever again. And when I was a kid, I didn't know the actual ramifications of what was happening. But I see it looking back. People talked about television programming as a really easy way to just let it go, just let yourself go. I worked all day. I just needed to sit in front of the TV and turn off. And you disconnect from the world. You no longer experience it. And since I was a kid, I've done that. But it's also only gotten easier to ignore things, to numb. When I was a kid, there was, cigarettes, there was drugs, there was TV. These are all, alcohol. These are all ways you can cut off, you can numb, you can detach from your experience in this world. Since then, we now have access to so many other things. There's so many different forms of nicotine that have completely changed the habit. Whereas before you had to go outside and smoke, or you had to go to a bar to smoke. Now you can just vape in your living room. You can throw a Zyn in and never ever go without a tiny little pouch in your lip ever again. I know because I was doing that. Right? I was going through a 10 a day, just throwing them back because I didn't want to experience. We have Instagram and Twitter, all these different things you have instant access to. With AI, it's only going to get faster. Immediate gratification was a huge problem in my teenage years, but you don't realize what delayed gratification, the power of that truly is until you experience it. And so a huge part of what I'm trying to do here is create a pathway from where I am watching Instagram for hours, watching the same TV shows because I know exactly what hit is going to hit what point, right? Steve Carell says that's what she said, that's funny. And you're riding that dopamine train. Then it gets, you start to get a little bit lower. So then you watch Instagram while you're watching The Office. And you start dopamine stacking. One of the things we experienced or learned in season 1 was how flow is us getting brought into the present. It is a grounding experience. It's where that hypofrontality takes over. Your executive function gets turned off. You start making deliberate moves. So unlocking flow state was a very important thing. How do we get to be more present? Because I think creativity is one of the most important things on this earth. How do we unlock it? So again, I'm trying to create a easy to follow guide. Step 1, try something. Step 2, get better at it. Step 3, are you good at it? No, keep going. Just like figure out this progression plan through my search for purpose. And hopefully that can be shared with you all. I think this is going to be a really interesting season. I'm still figuring it out, but I know that like season 1, I want to tie it to empirical data, like studies. I want to use anecdotes, historical examples. I talked a lot about Steve Jobs. I talked about Nietzsche. I feel like everything references Nietzsche now. We talked about Maslow's hierarchy. I'm most likely going to talk about John Wooden. And then I'm going to tie it to what's happening in my life. This season is going to be exciting. For me. I'm not doing this for anyone else. I am. But I'm trying to make content that I would want to watch. I want to make content that I think is helpful. And I think that's what this season is going to be. I think this season is going to be, like I said, the next step. We understand why flow, how flow happens, hypofrontality. But now I want to try and figure out what works for me, share it with you so that you can take what worked for me, that's the best advice for me, translate it, take what you need, create something for yourself. So over this season, I'm going to be establishing what my purpose is and find meaning through pursuit of that purpose. This podcast is important to me. When I started, it was just something I vaguely wanted to do. I didn't understand it. But as I go through this process, I'm finding out what I want it to be. And that's how I know that this hero's journey, the quest for purpose, is going to be a good season. I know it's going to be what I want it to be. Because like any creative act, I always like to say creativity isn't taking what you see in your head and delivering it to the world. It's taking what you see in your head and figuring out what it really is. What you visualize in your head is rarely what comes out on the page or the screen or the story, whatever it is. But it's your closest interpretation of that, right? That's creativity. That's the hero's journey. That's why you have 4 parts to a 3-part story, because you have what you think is the destination at the midpoint of the story. Okay, well, all I need to do is defeat Thanos, and Thor hits him in the chest with an axe, but he still makes he reverses time, snaps his finger, and everyone dies, right? That whole circle, and it's a circle for a reason. That's why we have sequels, because it's always like, oh, well, we already did all that, right? We did all that in Thor 1, and there's Thor 2, and Thor 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8. So yeah, I mean, I know it's going to work because it literally is, there's a reason it's a story as old as time. And I love it because like I said, Christ's story is the hero's journey. Death and resurrection is part of that. And it's really big in the motivation, alpha core, sigma verse. In order to get where you're going, you need to kill off who you are. And like, that's just evolution. People change. That is part of the journey as well. And so the hero's journey, a quest for purpose, is going to be a great season. I did not have that headline when I started this recording. I have it now. The creative process is funny, and it has the power to change the world in the most corny way possible. I am very aware just how corny I can be. I've established what the plan for the season is. First step, right? Because I want to give you actionable steps. It's the same one that, James Clear, Stephen Covey, every single one of those guys, John Doerr, is going to tell you. Establish what you want. What is your goal? What is your objective? What are the key results, right? My objective is to find purpose. My key results are the different sections of Ikigai. Now, how do I measure what I'm good at? How do I measure what's important to me? How do I measure what the world needs? And how do I quantify that in a monetary way? Those are the next questions I need to answer. So I'm going to go and take care of that. And we'll come back for episode 2, season 2. And we're going to get into, goal setting, what that looks like. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of pulling from other people, and then there's going to be experiencing it for myself, and then disseminating the information to you and using empirical, peer-supported data to support the ideas that I'm doing. When you write down a goal first, when you think of a goal, right, you write it down, you're 75% more likely to achieve that goal. Like I recommend to anyone who's going through anything, this is going to start with a journaling session. What do we want to achieve? What does it look like? What does it feel like? I'm going to get into manifestation because apparently it's neuroscience backed. I'm going to come up with a list of information. I'm going to come up with resources. It's going to be I'm very excited for this. I'm going to be building it as I'm doing it. The only way I know how to do it. I am unable, not unwilling, unable to plan. So I'm going to create this as I go and share the process with you. And that's going to be season 2 of Imitates Life. Thank you for joining for another episode of Imitates Life with your host, me, Tripp. Please make sure to follow, subscribe, like, share, comment. But please, only hateful comments. I don't want any positivity. None of that BS in my comment section. Kidding, obviously. If you've made it this far and then you leave a hateful comment, that'd be very funny. Because